3 a.m. The room is pitch black, except for the blue light from your phone hitting your tired eyes. You're doom scrolling. And there he is, that guy you sat next to in high school history class, or the coworker who quit 2 years ago. The photo is perfect. White sands of the Maldives, or a skyline view from a high-rise in Miami. On his wrist sits a watch that costs more than your car. He's smiling. He looks like he's hacked the code to life. You glance up at the notification from your banking app. 4 digits, maybe 3. Payday is still a week away, and you get that pit in your stomach. A mix of envy, anxiety, and the silent question, what am I doing wrong? You are not alone. That feeling is the defining sickness of the 21st century. But here is what nobody on Instagram tells you. If we could X-ray that successful guy's finances, the picture would likely be terrifying. Statistically speaking, that guy with the cocktail on the beach is likely closer to bankruptcy right now than you are. Welcome to 2026, the year where the definition of being rich has finally lost its old meaning and mutated into the greatest optical illusion in economic history. We're used to thinking of wealth in stereotypes from the early 2000s. Private jets, mansions with columns, briefcases of cash. But the reality is dry, boring, and kind of scary. To get into the top 10% of wealth in America, you need a lot less money than you think. But to look rich, like that guy on social media, you don't need money at all. You just need credit. Today, we are going to pop this bubble. My name is Mike. I've spent hundreds of hours digging through Federal Reserve reports, IRS data, and the 2026 inequality statistics, so you don't have to. We are going to break down what it actually means to be rich in the United States today. And I promise you, these numbers will change how you see your own life, whether you're in New York City or rural Ohio. You're going to learn why your salary basically means nothing, why people earning $200,000 a year can be technically poor, and exactly where that invisible line is, the line where money stops being a problem and starts being a tool of power. But before we look at the numbers, we need to answer one fundamental question. When you close your eyes and picture a rich person, who do you see? The guy in the red Ferrari throwing cash around? Or the guy who just never looks at price tags at the grocery store? Because those are two completely different people, and one of them is a fake. Most people spend their entire lives chasing the first image, not realizing it's a trap. And that specific mistake is what keeps them from ever becoming the second guy. Let's figure out why income is the biggest lie in your financial life. Picture a bucket, a simple metal bucket. The water pouring in from the top, that's your income. Your salary, your side hustle, your bonus. Most people stare obsessively at the stream of water. They think, if I just make the stream thicker, the bucket will fill up. But they forget to look at the bottom. There are holes. Rent, mortgage, car notes, subscriptions, the new iPhone because the old one felt slow. Wealth isn't the water pouring in. Wealth is the water that stays in the bucket. This is where the glitch in the matrix happens. We confuse status with capital. You see a guy in a brand new BMW X5. Your brain auto-checks a box. Rich. But what if I told you that car belongs to the bank? That the luxury apartment is a rental? And if he gets laid off tomorrow, he can't buy groceries in 3 weeks. That isn't wealth. That is high-paid slavery. In the US, there is a massive demographic of people called Henrys. High earner, not rich yet. They wear Patagonia vests to the office, eat at Sweetgreen, and look like masters of the universe. But internally, panic. They are running on a treadmill that speeds up every single year. Real millionaires look boring. The classic study, The Millionaire Next Door, proved a frightening pattern. The average American millionaire drives a car that is 5 years old, often a Ford or a Toyota. They live in a house they bought 20 years ago. You would walk past them in Home Depot and not even turn your head. Why? Because they don't spend money to impress people they don't even like. And this brings us to the point of no return. The moment that separates the broke with money from the actually wealthy. Imagine you get a raise. Let's say you double your salary. What do 95% of Americans do? That same night, they start Zillow surfing for a bigger house. They trade in the Honda for a Mercedes. In that moment, they commit a mistake that will cost them the next decade of their life. It's called lifestyle creep. Your expenses grow at the exact same speed as your income. You run faster, but the horizon doesn't get any closer. You just get more tired. To understand where you actually stand, we need to stop looking at the glossy surface and look at the dry reports from the Census Bureau. Let's look at the numbers. How much do you actually need to earn in 2026 to be considered elite? And why might even those numbers be a trap? I've built an income ladder for you, from survival to obscene wealth, and the first rung of this ladder is already broken. The median household income in the U.S. for 2026 is sitting around $83,000. In many parts of the world, that sounds like a fortune. But if you live here, you know the truth. $83,000 today is the new $50,000. This is the top 50% level, the middle. And you know what life looks like in the middle? It looks like anxiety. Take that $83,000, slash it. Federal tax, state tax, FICA. That's 20 to 25% gone before it hits your account. Now subtract health insurance premiums, just for the privilege of having a card in your wallet, not even paying for the doctor yet. Rent for a decent 2-bedroom in a Tier 2 city? That's $2,500 to $3,000 a month. Suddenly, that solid salary evaporates. You are living paycheck to paycheck. One broken transmission or one ER visit can blow a hole in your budget the size of the Grand Canyon. This isn't wealth. This is modern survival. Let's go higher. Top 25%. Entry ticket, roughly $150,000 per household. Here, you start to breathe. You stop checking your checking account balance before buying groceries at Whole Foods. You take a nice vacation once a year. Maybe you're even maxing out your 401k match. In the eyes of the world, you're rich. In the eyes of the American economy, you are simply the stable middle class. But you are still one corporate restructuring away from disaster. Climb higher, the elite club. Top 10%. To be here, your household income needs to cross $251,000 a year, $250,000. Here, the scenery changes. You live in a neighborhood with a good school district. Your neighbors are doctors, senior engineers, successful lawyers. 2 cars in the garage. You order Uber Eats without looking at the delivery fee. It seems like the dream. You've reached the top of the food chain. You are in the top 10% of the richest country on earth. But this is where the cruelest irony of American capitalism hides. Because even with $250,000 a year, you are not free. In fact, you might be more trapped than the guy making $80,000. Why? Because society demands you play the part. You can't live in the cheap neighborhood. It's not safe for the kids. You can't drive the beater. Clients won't take you seriously. You are obligated to spend money to maintain the status of someone who makes money. It's an endless loop. And the scariest part? Most people at this level have no capital. They only have cash flow. A stream of money they need to inject into their veins every month just to keep the lights on. Imagine that on the first of every month, a sum equal to a school teacher's annual salary hits your bank account. You feel euphoric. You feel powerful. But then the harvesting begins. In the U.S., the more you make, the more aggressively the system tries to claw it back. With a $250,000 income, Uncle Sam and your state governor are taking nearly 35 to 40% off the top. Then comes the rich person tax. Not the government kind, the social kind. You buy the $1.2 million home. You have to. And then you meet the silent killer, property taxes. In states like New Jersey or Texas, you're renting your house from the government forever. That could be $20,000 a year just to stay in your own living room. Add the HOA fees, the private school tuition because the public schools aren't great, the landscaper because you work 60 hours a week and don't have time to mow the lawn. By the 25th of the month, the guy in the top 10% looks at his account and sees zero. This is the golden handcuffs. You hate your job? Your boss is a tyrant. You're burned out? The average guy can quit, live on ramen for 2 months, and find a new gig. But the rich guy in the top 10% cannot quit. He has to feed the beast he created. His successful life has a monthly overhead of $12,000. If he stops running for even 1 month, the bank takes the house and the repo man takes the Tesla. He is a hostage of his own comfort. From the outside, it looks like the American dream. Inside, it's insomnia and chronic cortisol. This is why income is a liar. You can have a massive river of money flowing through your hands, but if none of it sticks, you're just a financial transit zone. The real truth isn't on your W-2. It's in the column most Americans are terrified to calculate. Net worth. Everything you own minus everything you owe. Let's run a thought experiment. Imagine that right now, this second, your cash flow stops. You're fired. The business fails. The servers go down. How long can you survive? That is the only question that matters, and the answer is your net worth. It's simple math that makes grown men cry. Take your assets, the value of your house, even if the bank owns most of it, your 401k, your savings, your car, your crypto. Now subtract the liabilities: mortgage, student loans, credit card debt, auto loans. The number left at the bottom? That is your score in the game. The stats for the US in 2026 paint a picture that should make you uncomfortable. The median net worth of an American household is around $193,000. Sounds okay? Almost $200,000. But the devil is in the details. The vast majority of that money is trapped in drywall. It's home equity. You can't pay for groceries with a brick from your foyer. It's dead capital. If we look at the younger generation, under 35s, the stats get depressing. The median net worth for this group is roughly $39,000. Think about that. $39,000. That is the price of a mid-trim Toyota Camry. That is everything the average young American has managed to accumulate. If they sold everything they owned and paid off every debt, they would be left with exactly one sedan. No house, no retirement, just a car. And that's the median. Half the country has less. Millions of people have a negative net worth. They are worth minus $50,000. Student loans are an anchor tied around their neck before they even learn to swim. This is why America is the land of contrasts. You see a guy in a suit drinking an $8 latte, but mathematically, the homeless man on the street with a crumpled $10 bill in his pocket is richer than that guy. Because the homeless man has plus 10, the guy in the suit has minus 100,000. But there is another caste, people for whom these rules do not apply. People who have escaped the gravity of paychecks. If the median is $193,000, how much do you need to be at the very top? We've reached the vertical wall. To get into the top 10% by net worth in the USA, you need assets totaling about $1.9 million. For most people, this is the finish line. This is the result of 40 years of work, a paid-off house, a fat 401k, and some savings. It's a comfortable retirement, but it's not succession-level wealth. You don't fly private, you fly economy plus. Let's go deeper. Top 5%. Entry ticket, $3.8 million. This is the level of a successful small business owner or a corporate VP. You can afford the vacation home. You can send the kids to Ivy League schools without loans. But the real explosion happens when we cross the threshold of the 1%. Top 1%. $11.6 million. Look at the gap. The difference between average and top 10 is under 2 million. The difference between top 10 and top 1 is nearly 10 million. The wealth graph isn't a line, it's a hockey stick. This is where the average person's understanding of money breaks down. To us, the difference between 1 million and 10 million is just a zero. It's abstract. But in reality, it's the difference between a speedboat and an aircraft carrier. Someone in the top 5% still has to worry about preserving capital. One bad divorce, one massive lawsuit, one medical catastrophe, and they slide back down. Someone in the top 1% is largely immune to regular problems. Interest on their capital at a conservative 5% yield pays them $500,000 a year for doing nothing, just for existing. This is the secret. The difference between the 1% and everyone else isn't just buying power. It's the difference between those who work for money and those whose money works for them. At the 1% level, the link between your time and your income is severed. A heart surgeon in the top 10% has to wake up and perform surgery to get paid. If his hand shakes, the money stops. The investor in the top 1% can stay in bed for a year, and he will end the year richer than he started it. Let's bring this down to earth. What does life actually feel like on these different floors of the skyscraper? First floor, the bottom 50%. The word here is cortisol. Life is tactical warfare. Your planning horizon is 1 week. The fridge breaks? Disaster. Panic. Payday loans. Toothache? You ignore it until it's an emergency because the dentist means no Christmas presents for the kids. You don't think about the S&P 500. You think about surviving until Friday. Top 25%. The noise quiets down. A broken fridge is an annoyance, not a tragedy. You just buy a new one. Your horizon expands to a year. You plan vacations. You fix the roof. This is what we used to call the middle class, but now it's a luxury. Top 10% and top 5%. Here is the distortion field. From the outside, paradise, nice lawns, lease on a Lexus, family photos in Aspen. Inside, the rat race on steroids. The lawyer making $300,000 is working 70 hours a week. He sells his time for a high price, but he has no time left to spend the money. He buys a boat he uses twice a year. He buys a huge house he only sleeps in. Money is there. Freedom is not. The penthouse, top 1%. Here, physics changes. The first thing you notice is silence. Problems that ruin other people's lives are solved here with a text message. The main resource isn't money, it's time and energy. The planning horizon is decades. You aren't thinking about next month's bills. You're thinking about who will run the trust fund when your grandkids are 30. At this level, you stop asking, "Can I afford this?" You ask, "Is this worth my time?" If a private jet saves 4 hours of TSA lines and delays, they don't buy it to look cool. They buy it because 4 hours of their time is worth more than the jet fuel. It sounds like nirvana, but if you talk to these people, you notice something weird. They aren't constantly euphoric. They are often just as anxious as the guy on the first floor, just about different things. Economists call it hedonic adaptation. Regular people call it being spoiled. But the mechanism is biological. And that brings us to the great paradox of wealth in 2026. There is a law of diminishing returns. It applies to tacos, and it applies to dollars. The difference between making $50,000 and $200,000 is massive. It's the difference between terror and peace, between the bus and a car, between a landlord and a deed. In this zone, money absolutely buys happiness, or at least it buys off sadness. But the difference between having $10 million and $100 million, in terms of daily quality of life, it's almost zero. Think about it. Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk wakes up on a mattress. It might be a $50,000 mattress, but it's a mattress. They pick up a phone. It's the same iPhone you have in your pocket. There is no iPhone Pro Max Billionaire Edition. They stream the same movies. They drink the same Coke. If you have AC, Wi-Fi, and Uber Eats, you are already enjoying 90% of the lifestyle benefits available to the kings of the world. Technology has become the great equalizer. The rich cannot buy better internet or higher quality music. So why do we keep running? Why does the guy with $5 million feel like a loser when he looks at the guy with $50 million? Because wealth is relative. If you live in a town where everyone rides bikes and you have a used Honda, you're the king. If you move to Malibu where everyone drives Bentleys and you have a new Mercedes, you feel poor. Our brains cannot process absolute numbers. We only process comparisons. And social media hacked this mechanism. You used to compare yourself to your neighbor. Now you compare yourself to the highlight reel of 8 billion people. Every second, the algorithm serves you someone younger, richer, fitter, and happier than you. Even if you make it to the top 1%, you won't stop. You'll just see a guy whose yacht has a helicopter pad. And the cycle restarts. In the end, the number on the screen doesn't matter if you don't control the one thing you can't buy: the freedom to say no. Many rich people I know are actually incredibly poor in this regard. Their calendars are owned by others. Their phones are leashes. They are employees of their own net worth. So, we've crunched the data. We've seen that the median is survival and the top 1% is a different galaxy. How much money do you actually need to be rich in 2026? If you're waiting for me to give you a specific number, you missed the point. Because enough isn't a number, it's a feeling. There is a brilliant quote: "Wealth is what you don't see." It's the car you didn't buy, so the money could sit in your account and give you peace of mind. True wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in autonomy. The hierarchy of real wealth looks like this. Level 1. Safety. Knowing that if the world goes to hell tomorrow, you and your family can survive for 6 months without a paycheck. That is worth more than any Supreme hoodie. Level 2. Comfort. You don't waste mental energy on small decisions, you buy time. Level 3. Autonomy. You wake up and say, "I can do whatever I want today." You work because you create value, not because you're terrified of the repo man. To reach level 3, you don't need $11 million. You don't need to be in the top 1%. You need to do 2 things. First, opt out of the status game. Stop trying to impress strangers on the internet. It's a game you cannot win because they keep moving the finish line. Second, define your own number for enough. And I guarantee you, it is lower than what the marketers are telling you. That guy in the Maldives on your feed? Let him stay there. He's fighting his own battle. You fight yours. In 2026, being truly rich means being free from other people's expectations. It means sleeping 8 hours a night and having a fortress of solitude in your bank account that protects you from the chaos of the world. Everything else is just decoration. Thanks for spending this time, your most valuable asset, with me. Make sure you're subscribed because the YouTube algorithm works just like the economy. It hides the most important stuff. My name is Mike. Think for yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.